Hey everybody, I'm back. As you noticed, I ended with the hit score, basically the focus of the story by Drazen, and Dan of course gave it 5. So now we look at the I score here in part 2 of Drazen's review of the 225 anniversary issue. So let's take a look at that. The I score he gives for the artisticness, it goes like this. This is his I score. And I quote, "Although the big attraction is the final 2-page bit of business with Operation Clean Sweep kicking in, there are some other impressive bits as well. Sonic and Sally's mid-air lip lock, and Sonic's glee at tangling with the super-sized Silver Sonic. Everything else is there because, well, it, and this is capitalized, has to be there in service of the setup to the recon. I score 7, so he gives the artwork a 7. Now, here's the heart. Basically the heart portion of the story. This is his heart score coming up, and I don't know if anybody will agree with it, but here we go. This is what he talks about before giving his score for heart of the story. Despite the fact that we never saw dead Sally after her death in Sonic 47, the viewing was postponed until the infamous big goodbye in S50, Sonic 50. Ken didn't cut away from the story. That meant that Sally's death cheat still carried an emotional punch. It also became the bias of Endgame's "did Sonic kill her" subplot, which nobody reading the comic bought for an instant. Not so this time around. By immediately kicking in the Genesis arc while leaving Sally's fate hidden by clouds of ambiguity for 4 issues, Ian Flynn essentially guts the psychology of the story. In short, he goes into denial. Denial, of course, is the primary response to loss. You don't want to believe it despite the evidence. Here, of course, Ian and Tracy and the editorial see to it that there's no real evidence of Sally's fate to speak of. There are only cynical crumbs dropped from the table to keep up our interest in buying the comic. The shadowed goggles in the non-canon Viant cover. The shadowed goggles in the non-canon Viant cover. This will be aided and abetted by the impending Sonic Genesis arc as a way of deflecting attention from Sally's fate for 4 issues. Something Ken Penders couldn't avoid in the old Endgame arc. Ken at least didn't ignore the elephant in the room. Even though he played fast and loose with it at the end, the death of Sally was a continuing supposition throughout Endgame. This time around, however, the comic refuses to comment. That may be good marketing, but it's lousy storytelling. In other words, he's saying that it might be good for sales, but if you're an avid comic book reader, it's lousy. It's a lousy way for not dealing with it. Continuing on with Drazen saying, and I quote, "If there was," and he capitalizes this, "one lesson that should have been taken away from Endgame, it's that a character death effectively trumps whatever the MacGuffin you started out with. And it's just happened again. Whether Sally has been killed or not, and I'm voting, and he puts this in quotations, not, that obscurity will haunt the next 4 issues of the comic, no matter how colorful or clever they manage to be. Heart score 4. Now apparently for any of us that read Genesis, either we got all 4 issues, part of a subscription, went out and bought them, or are going to get them as part of that graphic novel, we all know that Sally was reconned into that. And Dan, if you're watching this, and I hope you do, there's your answer. And I think you already know that by now anyway. Now, he mentioned some other things in the comic, like Sonic Spin, basically saying, and I quote, the Sonic Spin part of the comic at the end, and I quote, "This column just can't stop playing the readers. Paul," and he puts in his caps, "has to drag out the variant cover one more time." Then he looks at the fan art and says, "Some Sonic Sally art by Taylor, very much in the style of Jonathan Gray, to yank our chains again. A character melody by Tyler, the Shadow vignette is my favorite. And it's Sonic vs. Eggman versus Sonic vs. Eggman by Billy. Fan funnies." I told you in that video, he goes into a lot of detail. Fan funnies. John submits a chaotic scenario from what appears to be Sonic X. You'd think Johnny would understand the concept of no-fly zones. Then he goes off panel. "This reminds me way too much of the screensaver that came with my Sonic CD game." Sonic Grams, and he mentions, since this column was reduced to accommodate repeated appearances of the variant cover, they developed a backlog which they take care of in a pretty short order. Of most interest, the comic won't do a Sonic baby story. They try to joke about Sally's possible fate and fail. Mephiles will be putting in an appearance at some point or another. And to a letter about the variant cover victim being Sally, editorial says, "Believe me, the story doesn't end there." Hey, I'm still waiting for the story to get started. So technically what he gives the anniversary issue, ladies and gentlemen, is, well, seeing as though he gives the head score a 5, eye 7, and the heart a 4. So you got to think about that's 16. He gives it a score of 16. I guess very low. And I'm sure by now, again, you could read a lot of the reviews if you go to his website. I'm pretty sure he knows that Sally survived or got reconned in that Genesis deal. Now, I'm pretty sure, even though I did not print them out and have not read them yet, I'm pretty sure he has his own opinions on the Genesis arc. And maybe he kind of likes and maybe doesn't like the whole them flashing back kind of deal, but we can't really say yet. But I can say this. It seems that this guy, who's been doing reviews since issue 19 of the main comic and all the spin-offs and specials and stuff, and is friends with Ian Flynn, is associated and is friends with Ian Flynn, friends with Ben Bates, Tracy Yardley, and I think even Ken Penders. I think in a sense he kind of knows Ian Flynn, and I think that's why Ian Flynn, with all due respect, Ian Flynn is trying to throw us off because he knows there are people like Dan Drazen out there that are going to call him out on a lot of things, and either they're wrong or sort of in the vicinity of being right. I think he realizes people like Dan are one of those people that he mentioned in the email to Game Boy Sage as guessing within the ballpark of what's to come. So that's about it for my second read off of his reviews. Comment down below if you like. Tell me what you guys think, and I will talk to you all later.